another edition of the Gridiron Grind. Greta, Jimmy, how's the week been?
Been okay. I fell asleep Saturday and woke up Monday, and uh, when everyone says, I don't know, something happened on Sunday, I just can't place it. So, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
You know,
I still
round
got
one,
my wallet and my watch, so you know.
round one goes to the Eagles. What else can you say? Cooper Rush is human, didn't play well.
Yeah, there goes that's the end of Rush sanity.
Yeah, Dak's starting Sunday against the Lions.
Yeah.
Rush those 3 picks. I mean, the fact that Philadelphia only scored 20 in the first half, it was a miracle because Rush was giving them perfect field position. They could have scored at least another touchdown easily.
That's what I hear. And I started kind of recapping, following the recap and looking, and I'm going, okay, so they scored 20 in the, like you said, first half, and just it's going to be a blowout. We cut it to 3, and
We
I was like,
absolutely
okay,
dominated the third quarter.
like
Dominated the third quarter.
that was,
Defense, offense. And I mean, credit to Philadelphia. They won. I feel really good about Dallas at home in December against the Eagles with Dak Prescott as quarterback. Now,
yeah.
I mean, I think Dak wins that game, but I can't sit there and beat the chest to that because, it is what it is. You play the players that are available.
4-1 without Dak is pretty good. I think if anyone
I would take
said
it. Absolutely.
Dak goes down and Cooper Rush will give you 4-1, people
Absolutely.
probably thought you were crazy. Now, that's what I was going to say. The fact that we cut it to 3 is credit to our defense
Our
and
defense is
what
legit.
really what they can. Yeah, and because it's Philly's pretty good on offense, and for our defense to bring that back to within 3, give us a chance to take the lead and win the game. Hats off. That shows what kind of defense we've got.
Yeah, and I think Philadelphia's offense had a really good plan for our defense. I think they knew they couldn't block Micah Parsons, so they're like, let's just put him in conflict. We're gonna give him RPOs and leave him unblocked, and whatever way he decides to go, we'll do the opposite. And I think that was a great idea because you're not gonna be able to block that guy. He
Mm-mm.
still had an impact, but he didn't have the same kind of impact that he'd had, weeks prior. So hats off to the Eagles. I think Dak could win that game, but he also could have lost it too. But I feel good about that rematch in Dallas in December with Dak Prescott. So
I do too. Mariucci's already got us down for the win.
I
I
like it.
love.
I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys, Eagles do too, but the Cowboys have a very favorable schedule. I mean, the NFC is wide open. There's not any dominant teams. Tampa Bay is struggling. The Packers are struggling. The whole
Love
NFC
it.
West,
Love it.
everybody thought the West was going to dominate. 49ers struggling. Rams struggling. Cardinals struggling. Um, I mean, the NFC is wide open. The top 3 records are the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Cowboys. So, uh,
We're right in it.
and we got the Lions and Bears coming up before a bye. So, I like where the Cowboys are at. Get Dak back, get in a good rhythm, play the Lions at home, and they have maybe the worst defense in the league.
Love
So,
it.
would have loved for Brett Maher to make that field goal. I would have covered my Eagles bet that I gave out on the Gridiron Grind. Damn kickers really stuck it to me last week. I had the Texas game with Coffee with Creta. I had Longhorns team total first half over 16 and a half. And the Longhorns right off the bat, they block a punt and they get like a 30-yard field goal out of their drive, and he misses it. Start the game. They end up scoring 2 touchdowns. So he makes a chip shot. I cover that one. And then Maher misses that one towards the end, which the Cowboys would have lost by 6. Had him at 6.5 here on the show. So,
Mm.
damn kickers really stuck it to me last week. So, anyway, Cowboys bounce back hopefully this week against the Lions. We'll see Dak play. College football, what a weekend. What a weekend it was. The,
Amazing weekend.
the 3 biggest games I thought were, and they all delivered. Tennessee, Alabama, TCU, Oklahoma State, Utah, USC. You had Tennessee beating Alabama at a last-second kick, almost went to overtime. TCU Oklahoma State did go to overtime, and TCU with a huge comeback. Utah USC, Utah goes for 2 the last second to win the game by 1. Just 3 remarkable football games. Great call by you on the Tennessee over Alabama game. We both had TCU, but TCU only ends up winning by 3. We had them 4, so we took a tough beat on that one. And then Utah, I had Utah -3, and they won by 1. But it was an amazing weekend of college football. What did you think about it?
Man, I loved it. And that, Alabama, a lot of people say that's a surprise. I'm not a genius by any means, but if you can tell me that Alabama has looked like Alabama this season, I will accuse you of watching old film. This was a long time coming this season, and you and I talked about it. This started the national championship last year when Jamison Williams is hurt. A lot of these stud Alabama receivers are hurt, and these backups come in. They're dropping balls. They're not running the right routes. They were off. And that to me said, okay, we're either about to see Alabama kind of go back to when they, losing 2 games this season, not making the playoffs. They went and lost to Oklahoma in the bowl game. Or, yeah, it's just coaches. Those guys are freshmen. These guys will get them coached up. And after they started the year, I said, oh, no, it's the first one. It's almost like Alabama doesn't have the dudes. Don't get me wrong. Alabama's got guys on their teams that coaches would dang near leave their wives for, right? But Georgia, to me, looks like how Alabama's been. Oh, look at all they've lost. They can't be the same. Holy crap, they're just as good or better.
I agree with you.
Alabama, this was a long time coming, and it just so happened Tennessee was the team to do it. But yeah, I thought the Tennessee game was right where it was, right what I expected to happen.
Alabama, when's the last time you could have said halfway through the season, Alabama legitimately could have 3 losses? Now, they only have 1, but they escaped Texas by a 1-point victory. A&M had a chance with the ball.
Terrible play call.
Terrible play call, but, I mean, they had a chance to score a touchdown, win the game. And then Tennessee gets them. So we'll see what happens with Alabama down the road. They got Ole Miss is undefeated. I don't know. Other than that, I don't really know who could. I don't think Mississippi State. I'd hate to be Mississippi State Saturday.
Yeah.
Alabama's favored by 21 over them.
And you remember how, of course, heck, you never know. This may be a close game like the A&M game, but I would think that Nick Saban after a loss, I'd hate to be any one of those players or coaches. I just think this could get ugly.
This is a get right game for Mickey and the boys. And the last 3 games, Mississippi State's been last 3 times Mississippi State has went to Alabama, to Tuscaloosa, they've been blowouts. So see what happens there.
Gimmick offenses, not that the air raid's a gimmick, but like Saban just doesn't. It's just like he's like, okay, yeah, that's cute. Oh, you run the this, okay? What? Well, here's the perfect defense for that. Got it.
Here and also with like the air raid, there's not a lot of plays,
right?
And that's still like Lincoln Riley and them. It's really not a lot of plays. It's like different formations, but it's the same plays. And Nick Saban, he's been around, seen it all, and he's prepared for it all. I mean, if he only has to prepare for like 20, 30 plays.
Yeah.
They'll just rep those 20, 30 plays, all week. And I mean,
and then it's over. Yeah. Especially because those guys probably don't have an ass to sit down on because it got chewed off all week. I'm like, those guys are doing nothing but running over plays.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, we got
for the Bulldogs.
Last week was 6 first-ranked games. This week we have 5. We got 11 o'clock. We got 14 Syracuse at number 5 Clemson. Clemson 13-point favorite. The afternoon game, you got 2 games. You got number 9 UCLA at number 10 Oregon, each with a loss. Or excuse me, UCLA still undefeated. Oregon favored by 6. Number 20 Texas at number 11 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State getting 6.5 at home. Then night games, you got number 24 Mississippi State at number 6 Alabama. Alabama favored by 21. And then 2 undefeated teams, in the Big 12 anyway. Kansas State has a loss to Tulane, but the two undefeated teams in the Big 12 is number 17 Kansas State at number 8 TCU. TCU at home favored by 3.5. I mean, that should be an exciting game. You're going to have one atop the leaderboard in the Big 12 after Saturday, and it's going to be the winner of TCU Kansas State. And then you're going to have one of them with one loss, and then you're going to have the winner of Texas Oklahoma State with one loss as well. So a lot of clarity is about to come out in the Big 12. The next couple weeks in the Big 12, it's last week was the start of it, and then this week, next week, week after, the next 3 weeks, there's like a 4-week window. The Big 12 is going to be decided who's going to make the conference championship. I mean, it's such a competitive conference this year, so there are a couple good ones. So I'm sure we'll have a couple of those in the picks coming up. Little game we like to play: contender or pretender. Now, this is the teams making the college football playoff. So, are they a contender, or are they just pretending right now that they can?
Are they pretending to contend?
They're pretending to contend to make the college, not to win it all, but to make the top Final Four. Obviously, if you look at the top, I think you can agree Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan, they're all contenders.
100%.
They're all undefeated. Ohio State, Michigan, I don't think anybody's going to beat them except for when they play each other. Winner of that game probably gets in. So they're contending. Georgia, Tennessee, I mean, likewise.
Yeah.
Georgia, Tennessee, they're going to probably – one of them's going to lose that game, make the conference championship, and then they could at most have one loss if they lose in the conference championship. So we'll start with Clemson. I know you're not a big fan of Clemson, but Clemson doesn't have a lot of teams who can beat them after Syracuse. They play ranked Syracuse, and they got to play Notre Dame. After that, I don't know if anybody can beat them. Clemson could be staring 12-0 and then a 13-0 ACC championship staring right in the face. Clemson, contender or pretender?
They're a contender in the same way that one of those teams, you remember the BCS, it was Hawaii, those type teams where, we're undefeated and look, give us a chance. We want in. And then Hawaii went and should have never got off the bus after that, had to go, they got the floor wiped with them by Georgia. Clemson doesn't play anybody. I'm not a fan of them because I think their best quarterback's on the bench. Not a fan of Ukulele.
Well,
their defense is keeping them in games.
Exactly. And I just don't think if they get in, which if they go undefeated, they're going to get in because they're not going to be, I don't think there'll be 4 undefeated teams. So they'll be one of a few undefeated teams. So you got to put them in. But I don't see them beating any of those teams we just talked about in front of them. I don't see them beating any of those.
No, because bad quarterback play, as we found out on Sunday, you can carry your defense, all this stuff. It can carry you for only so long. But when you have mistakes, when you have just average quarterback play or below, it's going to surface. And that's what I think is going to keep Clemson. I think you're right. I think so to answer the question, they're a contender only because they play in a weak conference. I think they're a contender, but it wouldn't surprise me if they lose one before then, just because Ukulele could have one of his typical games and then it's over.
Next one, Alabama. Are they a contender or a pretender? They got one loss to Tennessee. Really, the only thing I can see them, unless they just fall apart against Mississippi State or LSU or Auburn, I guess. But, I mean, the toughest game they have left is Ole Miss.
Right. They got four teams that I think are still capable of beating Alabama, and you just named them all. Iron Bowl, never a sure thing at all. Ole Miss, Kiffin remembers being left at the stadium. Lane Kiffin will beat the brakes off Alabama if he gets the chance.
Oh, yeah.
21 up, 21-0, 21-7. Lane Kiffin would not stop. Just like I told you, Sarkisian, Oklahoma. Nobody's going to walk in Lane Kiffin's office on Sunday and go, Coach, you really shouldn't have beat Nick Saban by 52. Yeah. They're going to say, why couldn't you beat him by 53?
Exactly.
So Ole Miss, everyone for years now has been gunning for Alabama. Now there's a chink in the armor. Now there's hey, we got them. Like Tennessee got them. And especially this whole season, I think everyone believes they've been beatable. And now they got. So I think everyone's going to be gunning for them because one more loss and they're done. I mean, Ole Miss beats them. Ole Miss would jump to be the favorite in the West to go on to play Tennessee or Georgia. So there's going to be a lot on that game. I think Alabama, I'm going to say it. I think Alabama's pretending. I don't believe they can run the gauntlet of the rest of the West and the SEC championship game to make the playoffs.
Exactly. I don't think they can beat Ole Miss.
I don't think they can go 4-0 in those games.
Yeah, well, that, and even if they do, I don't think they can beat Georgia or Tennessee.
No.
Like they just show they couldn't beat Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Georgia is better than Tennessee. I just don't think they can do it. I mean, it's hard to say that. Of all the years they've had the college football playoffs since 2014, Alabama's been in it every year except for one. So it's hard to think about that. But you got Bryce Young, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and the best quarterback in the country, if you ask me. And then you got Nick Saban, the best coach. It's hard to say that, but I agree. I think they're a pretender. Here's 3 undefeated teams kind of lumping there together. Ole Miss, TCU, UCLA. Ole Miss undefeated in the SEC, still got to play Alabama. TCU's undefeated, Big 12, they still got to play Kansas State and Texas. And then UCLA's undefeated, and then of course they're on the road against Oregon and also got to play USC. Of those 3, who are the contenders, pretender? Ole Miss, TCU, UCLA.
I think Ole Miss is a contender. I think TCU is a contender. I don't believe UCLA. I don't. I mean, they may even go undefeated.
Oregon, and I think they got to go at USC.
I don't know if they'll I don't believe they'll be undefeated, but even if they are, I believe that TCU being undefeated or Ole Miss winning the West and going I think UCLA is a pretender. TCU and Ole Miss, because of the people they would have to beat, I think would jump them. So I think TCU and Ole Miss are contenders, where UCLA is a pretender.
Yeah, I agree. And TCU, to make it, do you think they'd have to go undefeated? You didn't think they'd have to win out in the regular season and then beat somebody, maybe have to beat Oklahoma State again, or I guess maybe a Texas or Kansas State again in the Big 12 championship? It's hard to imagine them getting in with one loss.
Yeah, I think they've got to go undefeated.
They didn't have a big
not a lot of hype around them. Yeah, and it's one of those, they're going to have to do like Hoosiers, right? They're the Hoosiers type team. They're going to have to beat everybody. If they slip up somewhere along the way, I think it's over. I don't think they have the name power to pull it out like
I agree.
Like other teams.
But that would be super impressive if they were, even if they just had one loss. You already got a win against Oklahoma State. The most likely game, according to the ESPN FPI, is a loss at Texas, 12th. And it's at Texas. We just talked about the gauntlet they're about to go through. Texas is at the end of that for them. So, I mean, that one's already just setting up perfect for Texas to host TCU. So, let's say they lost that one. They'd have a win over Oklahoma State. They'd have a win over Kansas State. They'd have a loss at Texas. But then they would probably play, if that happened, then they'd probably play Texas in the Big 12 and say they beat them in the Big 12 championship. TCU would then have a win over Texas, their only loss. I mean, that'd be a heck of a resume if you had wins against Texas, TCU, Oklahoma State, or Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and then all the other teams in the Big 12. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
What happens elsewhere, I guess.
And another team that could become the first 2-loss team might be your Texas Longhorns. If they win out, think about the resume they would have. The loss against Tech's terrible, but the wins against ranked opponents and the win against probably another ranked opponent in the Big 12 championship game, it's an extremely long shot. But the horse is in the race. The horse is in the race.
They'd have to break precedent because they'd never put in a 2-loss team.
But Texas has the name. Texas has the
Has the
brand
name.
recognition
Yeah.
and would have a pretty good resume of win.
And you can say 1 point loss to Alabama without
Mhm.
your starting quarterback, and a 3 point overtime road loss at Tech without your starting quarterback.
Mhm.
And they have said in the past they take injuries into account. Like if you're not at full strength when you lose, they do take that into account. I think Texas would still need a lot to like first they'd have
I
to
agree.
win
I
out,
think
and
it's a long
I
shot.
don't know if they could win out. I think they're going to run into some trouble this Saturday at Oklahoma State, but they'd have to win out. But then I think you'd have to have some other teams. Uh, you'd have to have a little bit of chaos. You'd need Ohio State and
Mhm.
Michigan to each have a loss. Because then you could say, well, one of them didn't even play for a big conference championship. You know, Texas could hold that over
Mhm.
their head if they had a conference
Right.
championship. You need Clemson to lose for
Hey,
sure.
Illinois might. Illinois, they're in that. They're in the
Illinois
opposite
got
side
one
of the
loss.
bracket. Hey, Illinois could give you that loss.
Heck
So
yeah, heck yeah. Here's a nightmare scenario for SEC haters. Okay, listen to this. SEC haters nightmare scenario. 4 one-loss teams in the SEC. You have Alabama beats Ole Miss. Okay,
okay.
Alabama goes to the SEC championship with one
Mm-hmm.
loss. Ole Miss has just the one loss. Georgia beats Tennessee. Tennessee ends with one loss. Georgia undefeated plays Alabama with one loss SEC championship. Alabama beats Georgia. So you'd have Alabama, conference champ, one loss, Georgia one loss, Tennessee one loss, Ole Miss one loss. That is nightmare fuel for the SEC haters because you could legitimately have a Final Four of those 4 SEC teams.
Well, and
And I
you
don't
would have
know outside of Ohio State, but if Ohio State has one loss,
yeah.
let's say everybody had one loss. Let's say Ohio State slips up to somebody
Mm-hmm.
and but they beat Michigan. So Michigan has a loss, Ohio State has a loss. Clemson has a loss, but not their schedule's not even close, so they're
Right.
out. Uh, I mean, yeah. So I mean, that would
I
be
think Ohio State. You could have 3-1. I think Ohio State. I think Ohio State would get in, and then I think it would. You'd
well
have
the winner of Ohio State Michigan.
yeah
Well,
would
whoever won
get
that
in.
game, I think would deserve to get in. I don't think they'd put 4 teams from one conference.
No, but it would be. I think two of those SEC teams make it. I think
Yeah.
you probably have the two in the SEC championship game go for sure. And then you may have, yeah, that's a pretty good
Well, it
scenario,
depends.
man.
So I think what everybody's hoping is that it's Georgia, Alabama. Alabama beats Ole Miss. Georgia, Alabama. Georgia beats Alabama. Alabama would have
Mm-hmm.
2 loss, be out.
Yeah,
Ole
out of the question.
Miss have a loss to a 2 loss Alabama, so they'd kind of be out. So
Mm-hmm.
Georgia would automatically be in, and then you would if Tennessee and Georgia was a close game, I think Tennessee would have a great case to get in. Um, I mean, a lot can happen. So much can happen, and it's all going to happen in the next 3-4 weeks.
I know. I can't
What I love
wait.
about it. I mean, this is when it really gets going. So, uh, what about USC? Just suffered their first loss. If USC runs the table, I could see maybe a scenario where they get in, they win the Pac-12. Are they a contender or a pretender?
I think they're a pretender. I think we may start to see, I think they still got to play, um, or excuse me, they played Utah. They're playing UCLA. I mean, there's still some tough game. Notre Dame.
They
There's
got to
still
play Notre
games.
Dame.
They still games that they have to play. They haven't really played anybody. They played a tough Oregon State team and barely got by. I think USC is a pretender.
Yeah, and I think it really showed they're not as good on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just not. I mean, like I said, they barely survived Oregon State, didn't survive Utah. They're just not as good on the road. Speaking of Notre Dame, maybe the worst loss. Well, they already have a bad loss to Marshall, but you were a 17-point favorite at home to Stanford. Stanford hadn't won a game against a Power Five in 3 years.
And those fans don't care that they have those fans
Yeah,
don't even care they have a
Stanford
football team.
like they take all these other sports serious. They could care less about football. Um, no, so there's been 10 double-digit home upsets this year. Notre Dame's been 2 of the 10. They were a 20 something point favorite to Marshall, lost at home, and a 17-point favorite to Stanford at home.
Yeah, but Trey, you're not remembering Newt Rockney, and you're not remembering the Four Horsemen. And remember Rudy? Yeah, Rudy, Trey. That's right. That's what I thought. So Notre Dame is still good. That's if you ask Notre Dame people. I mean, we had the preseason bet on them. The first and last time I ever believe in
Dude,
Notre Dame. They annoy me.
they got to win out for us to win that
I
bet.
mean,
They have to win out. That means
good luck.
They have to beat Clemson. They have to beat USC. And
Maybe they will. Maybe
North
they'll beat
Carolina.
Clemson and USC and really
And
just
North
take them
Carolina.
out.
Or they already beat North Carolina. They already
Yeah.
beat. Yeah, it's not looking great there.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. College. When does the playoff committee come out with the stand for their first stand? Is it next weekend?
It's next weekend or weekend after. I'm gonna go try to stay down there in Grapevine and just kick it with them.
Yeah.
See if I can't slip notes under the door.
Yeah, put your 2 cents in.
Like I'll make a CD. I'll burn them a CD with our show and be like, well, here's what these guys think.
Yeah.
So-
I actually agree with the top 4. I'd have my top 4 right now would be Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan. And that's what they have right now.
I agree with that.
And really, you could put them in any order. They've all looked really good. Yeah, Clemson's 5th, but they're undefeated. I'd move Ole Miss up. I think Ole Miss is 7. I'd have them above Alabama. I'd have them above Clemson. I'd have Ole Miss at 5, actually. I have TCU up there, too. All right. Go to picks. Rough week. My first losing week on the grind this year. I was 1-4. So, but I'm still 24-14 on the season. So I'm having a great year. Jimmy with a big winning week was 4-2 last week. Jimmy now 23-16. So again, still hottest show on YouTube. When we're picking like 66.
Yeah, we're making money. You trying to pay off the house? Listen to us.
Exactly. So I got 5. I'm going all college this week.
Me too.
You got 5? Okay.
5 all college.
All right. I'm going to get it started with a team we kind of ragged on, and we think they're not that good, but they play in a weak conference and they're undefeated. And that's Clemson. They're hosting undefeated. So a couple undefeateds in the ACC. Clemson hosting Syracuse. It's in Clemson. Clemson's favored by 13.5. Buy that down. Give it to me for 13. Clemson minus 13. I just don't think Syracuse. I've watched Syracuse on TV probably 4 times this year, and they're good. They're gritty. They're solid, but they haven't really played hardly anybody. They did beat NC State last week. They do have a good defense, and it could be a low-scoring game. But I watched Clemson against Florida State, and I even think Florida State's better than Syracuse. Clemson's just they got more dudes. They got more Jimmys and Joes. So I think Clemson at home minus 13 over Syracuse.
I'm gonna stick with that same game, and I'm going Syracuse plus 13.5. I think Clemson's to the point to where, and has been, where that whole conference, just like Alabama, every week that whole conference is gunning for you. But when you're Clemson, you've been head and shoulders so far above everybody. No one can really test you. I think Syracuse can test them for exactly the reasons that you listed. They're gritty. They play hard. They remind me a lot of Northwestern. And Northwestern, as you know, in the Big Ten, is the fighting Pat Fitzgerald. You always got to make sure you come to play. Sure. And I think Syracuse is going to keep this game close. I think this is going to be closer than Clemson wants, and Syracuse covers 13.5. So Syracuse plus 13.5.
Well, yeah. Well, I took half a point down. I'll give you half a point up. So Syracuse plus 14 for Jimmy. Okay. Very well could. And I know this. You'll find out Saturday if Syracuse is first.
Yeah. First quarter.
I mean, yeah, you'll find out. So, I mean, I like Syracuse. I think it's a great story because they've been terrible the last couple of years, and now what are they 6-7-0?
6-0.
All right, my next one, 2:30, number 20 Texas at number 11 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is getting 6.5. I'm going to bump that up to 7 because one, Oklahoma is coming on is kind of desperate for a win. They just lost
Mm-hmm.
to TCU on the road. They're coming back home. This is a spot where they got to bounce back. They got to win it. I think Mike Gundy's the best coach in the Big 12, and this is just a spot where I think Oklahoma State needs it more than Texas does. Texas under Steve Sarkisian is 1-5 in true road games. He's been terrible on the road, and we were for his first road loss last year. We were there at Arkansas, and we just saw Arkansas beat the brakes off of them. It has not been good for Steve Sarkisian. He's 0-1 this year in true road games at Texas Tech. They just struggle on the road. I think Texas is a better team, especially with Spencer Sanders being hurt. I think, Texas probably finds a way to win the game just because I think they're better. But it's going to be a hostile environment. It's homecoming at Oklahoma State.
Man.
It's a big thing there.
Yeah.
So I think the smart play here is Oklahoma State plus 7.
I like it. I'm going Cincinnati SMU over 58. The Ponies took care of me last week, and I think they're going to do it again this week. Cincinnati and SMU over 58. Two offenses averaging in the 30s. I think they're going to get it done.
I like it.
SMU at home over 58.
It's a great bet. And I guarantee you, if the Pony poops on Gerald Ford Stadium field again, you're going to hit it again.
It's over.
My third one's Purdue at Wisconsin. Purdue's getting 3 points. Wisconsin, they're on their second coach of the season. Hadn't looked great. Purdue, they got a good offense. They've been in some battles. Beat Minnesota earlier in the year. I like Purdue here, even though they're on the road. Give me the Purdue Boilermakers. Boiler up plus 3 over Wisconsin.
I like it. The next one, I thought about money lining, but I'm going to take the points. It's always best to take the points. Duke.
You learned that lesson, Kansas State, Iowa State 2 weeks ago.
Take the points. Duke plus 9 against Miami. I think Miami has they lose A&M. They have just not, all the hype is gone around that program. Them and Florida State were really supposed to be contending in the ACC this year, not so much. And Duke has met and exceeded, overachieved, whatever you want to call it, expectations. And I think they keep it within 9, may even outright win the game. I think Duke's tired of seeing that punt return on the ESPN, on YouTube, on all that stuff, where a few years ago they let Miami with no time left run a punt back after 39 pitchbacks. Duke plus 9.
I like it. Arizona State on the road at Stanford. Now, no, Arizona State's on their second coach, but Stanford was a 17-point underdog last week and won at Notre Dame. I think that was more to do with Notre Dame than Stanford. I don't think Stanford's any good. I don't think they they hadn't won a Power 5 game in 3 years. They did it last week. Now you're telling me they're going to win 2 in a row? They're favored by 3? I don't think so. I like Arizona State plus 3 at Stanford.
I like it. Next one, Ole Miss at LSU, 2:30. Important. It's an afternoon game, not a night game in Death Valley. Give me Ole Miss plus 2.5. This is a game that Ole Miss is going to have to win to stay in the contention and the hunt for contention, to still prove they are a contender. I think they are. I think Tennessee going in there and just thumping LSU like they did. I think if it's not at night at LSU, it's anyone's ball game. So I'm gonna go with what I think is the better team, and that's Ole Miss and the points.
I like it. I had to learn that lesson earlier when they played Tennessee. LSU's not the same team at night, or in the day as they are at night.
No. Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde. All right, one left. Big one in the Big 12. Number 17, Kansas State at number 8, TCU. We were kind of talking about it off air. I think TCU's the third scoring offense and total offense in the country behind Tennessee. I think it's either 1 or 2. But anyway, TCU's number 3. They score with the best of them. Kansas State's the opposite. Kansas State wants to slow it down, quarterback run game, play defense, and Adrian Martinez. Maybe the 2 best running quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year, but TCU is so dynamic on offense. That was on display that whole second half and in overtime last week. It's a small number, 3.5. I'd get that down to 3. I think TCU's a better team. I think TCU outscores them. I don't know if Kansas State can keep up. It worries me on a letdown after that emotional win last week, but it's back-to-back home games. Kansas State did have a bye last week, so that also scares me. But in the end, TCU, I think, is the better football team, and I'm getting a small number at home. So give me TCU -3 at home over Kansas State.
I'm taking that same bet. TCU, I think offensively is going to be too much for Kansas State. Kansas State plays hard. They play good defense, but I think Duggan and the Horned Frogs, too much offensive firepower for Kansas State to handle, and I think TCU at home covers that. We could see double digits late. I think Kansas State just overmatched here, and that's going to knock Kansas State out. And I believe in TCU, and this is a game they got to win. So I think they win it. TCU at home -3.
Kansas State is starting a heck of a schedule. So they got at TCU, then they're home next week against Oklahoma State, and then they host Texas November 5th. Texas has a bye next week, so Texas will have a chance to prepare for Kansas State. So this is why I really believe going to that Texas-Oklahoma State game, I think the winner of Texas-Oklahoma State, we said last week, winner of Oklahoma State-TCU makes the conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good about that. I think TCU makes it. The winner of this Oklahoma State-Texas game, I think I'm going to go on record saying that's who's going to play TCU for the Big 12 championship.
I believe it. I can see it.
I think Texas with a bye week before Kansas State. Kansas State would have to be their third ranked game in a row. Texas off a bye. I think Texas is just better than Kansas State. I think they probably beat them. And then I think, like I talked about earlier, it really lines up for Texas to beat TCU. TCU is going to have that gauntlet of a stretch, and it's on the road, and they'll probably be undefeated. It'll just be the perfect spot, I think, for Texas. So I really feel like whoever wins this one, Texas, Oklahoma State. And again, Oklahoma State, if they beat Texas, you have just beaten Texas and you have a loss to TCU. Only one you have left that could have a tiebreaker on is Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think Oklahoma State's better than Kansas State. So I think this is it. Whoever wins Saturday, Texas, Oklahoma State's probably going to play TCU for the Big 12 championship. And that could all be wrong. Kansas State could beat TCU, and that whole theory is out the window. But
yeah, no, I don't know with Adrian Martinez at quarterback, but we'll see. That's why they play the games.
Why they play the games. And another one that I know it worries me that LSU is unranked, but they're favored against 7th-ranked Ole Miss.
Yeah, I don't understand that one.
I don't either, but
I just think Ole Miss is the better team.
I do too, but Vegas is a billion-dollar business. That's my
We're almost there.
Because eye test on paper, Ole Miss is the better team. Like getting points, it's ridiculous. But I don't know. That's a crazy spirit. LSU is unranked, but they're favored over top 10 Ole Miss.
Yep.
I don't know. That's why I play the game. We'll see. I mean, how's Ole Miss not the right side? You know. So we'll see.
I don't either.
We'll see. All right, that's another edition of the Gridiron Grind in the books. It's going to be a great weekend of football. Go Hogs, go Horns, go Cowboys on Sunday. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining the grind. See ya.
See ya.